when we talk about 5D, the oneness consciousness person is an integrated mind and a restorative embodied self. And I do it this way, even though it should be here, but this way because this is your masculine and you got a left and right mode, and they have different functions. Left is our verbal, right is our nonverbal, and for the 5D person, they're equally connected. So this is where your brain has been working to integration all on your own or with the support of lovely psychoeducators or mentors, coaches, consultants, but the choice of being in integration was yours. You are the person, whoever it is that is in 5D, of course, that began to acknowledge, I have emotions in this body. So you did not have your insula down regulated. So your head and your body were not cut off, which is instead what those who have modulated or dysregulated embodied selves, they don't know the restorative embodied self feeling. And I'm integrating different pieces of psychoeducation, which obviously are being added up. So this is why it's always food for thought. But for my 5D mystics, this is helpful to you particularly because anyone who's on an actual growing up journey, so they choose to go to good psychoeducator, a good somatic sensory motor and trauma expert, they actually have acknowledged that their body and their mind wants that extra support. So they're getting all the good, compassionate, therapy focused, or the IFS and or DBT. There's so many different models that support people to start creating a somatic experience and or to at least get knowledge of this approach of our body being an embodied brain. So our body and our mind, they are connected, but they're separate in the way that that information is stored, not because they're separate, but because we will have began with our lovely nervous system and with our lovely body. And when you don't get that contingent communication in the first year of life, that's where we also will have an attachment system that will either be secure, that's if you get contingent communication, so a third of attunement, and then repairing ruptures, which means you know how to apologize, you know how to be compassionate. It means you will have had a world and a life where you do know what love means and you believe in it and you believe in humanity. The ones who don't, that's a very different story. And so that's where things begin to take place in very different ways. The 5D person, on the other hand, is a person who knows about love, chooses love consistently. As I was trying to say before I got moved, so we have a change of scenery here and the sun in my eyes. The person who has either done personal development so that they could become more of the adult version of themselves or just a 5D mystic, we will know compassion beyond a reason because that's actually something that you're able to be familiar with since the restorative embodied self allows that, as does integration of the mind. So when you're working with your left and right mode, you are working with your thoughts, and that would be the verbiage, and then the emotions are the non-verbiage. And the right mode of our lovely brain is also where we're able to sit in the unknown, uncertainty, in the infinite, without having to dissect, which is the left mode, and know every single one of the things that are happening. We are able to see the patterns of the patterns and the relationality of those patterns and what they serve. So they serve usually a person. And on that note, for the lovely energies about what I have noticed as themes right now is the unfortunate inability for adaptive children, the people who are in their yellow, so self-defense and or just defense mechanisms, and then in their red, basically triggered by their own unresolved trauma and or their own attachment wounds and their own stereotypes, generalizations, and that group mentality where they're being what I would define as emotional mental bullies to each other. So a lot of different groups that are yelling at each other, whether it be for political, religious, or other reasons, are actually not supporting expansion of consciousness, and they are not supporting safe spaces either. Because they're yellow and red, they are creating a unsafe, emotionally speaking environment, but these are those groups. So it's not like a big deal because it's like the movies with drama and gossip. I mean, watch any of them and you'll find that people behave the way of the movies. And the lovely psychoeducators are the ones who enlighten me, plus with the mystic stuff. So metaphysics, esotericism, and with spirituality, the ability to channel and support those who, again, want to either move into 5D or those who want to get a bit of knowledge on what it's like to be an actual enlightenment soul age group person, because this is where it's a person who's an integrated mind and a restorative embodied self, and who, when we see people ganging up on each other in a way with stereotypes, stigmas, and just using these cliche sentences, and all that is basically group mentality, we're not seeing a side. We're seeing a repeat of our ancestors' usage of their defense mechanism in a way that is not necessary. So we have a nervous system because we have one. It serves us very well, but learning how to be in compassion is what serves you even better. And that's why yoga is so great. It works your ventral vagal nerve toning. It has become very popular, which is really great again. And the part about the little enlightenment mantles, that part, not as great necessarily, but at least it gives people the ability to start learning to harness their cortex. Because when you sit in meditation, you can learn to start harnessing your cortex. And then if you choose to be a person who is compassionate beyond a reason with every other person, you get to start learning how to use your limbic system and your brainstem. And when I say learn, I mean you get to start pausing instead of reacting. You get to start breathing instead of reacting. You get to start saying, let me not use inner critic or outer critic. Let me not use a compulsive behavior, sex, drugs, alcohol, food, distractions. Let me go hide out away from people. So all of the cutting out, the rigid boundaries, the rigid talk that people do, especially in the community of those who talk about mental health, they are very much not getting good psychoeducation. They are using words in a way that is not supporting people to understand what it means to actually create healthy boundaries, which is really about healthy relationships, which is the basics: flexibility, adaptability. There's not one ego in town. I remember being a kid and being told that, and I remember starting to grow up and understanding it. And that's where my tone, for example, began to take a working with. And that's because being able to maintain a sense of ease in your body, you can tell from the voice. That's where the ventral vagal nerve, it's all over your face, the voice, the throat, I forget until where it goes. But the part about recognizing your own tone, it is something you can do. Most people justify their rigid methodologies. In fact, they hide retaliation with self-justification, meaning something along the lines of, oh, I'm going to do it this way because they should know better. Oh, I'm going to teach them a lesson. Or how about the ones where, if you don't change, then I ain't going to do. So all these things are equated not to healthy boundaries in any way, shape, or form. It's more of a way of you feeling hurt, retaliating, and there's your adaptive child, which is then withdrawing with the group and thinking that that was something right to do. The ability to have conversations without the aspect of charged states is easy when you can spell out, I really feel this, and this way, some of these things, some of those things. It's a conversation. When people respect each other, it's always a conversation about how there's feelings involved, thoughts involved, and then there's flexibility because obviously, again, there's not one ego in town. Now you can do this one-on-one, you can do this worldwide. It's about walking the walk, talking the talk. And for the 5DC person, well, that's easy for us to be compassionate and loving, especially for the enlightenment soul age group person. And as we choose to share with people, stop yelling at each other, and how about you try talking to each other, and how about you do understand we're not one ego, we're not one thought, we're many thoughts, and we're many cultures, and we're many different types of extreme ideas, not ideas. It's all about communication, though. If you can't communicate, there is no grown-up land without being able to actually have conversations. And as a political science major, I actually thought that people would know that, but I grew up and I was like, wow, okay, a lot of people don't know how to converse. So let's use the functional adult love language. Let's move into 5D oneness consciousness. Let's learn how to love each other better and be united in this beautiful planet called Earth.